Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Pedalshift Project. The Pedalshift Project is a series of conversations, thoughts, and experiments around the bike touring lifestyle. From tips and tricks to ideas on how to ride your ride, let's shrink the world by bike. Show notes and more are available at pedalshift.net/200. You can email the show, pedalshift@pedalshift.net, or call the voicemail hotline at 202-930-1109, and check Pedalshift out on all the socials as well. Hello, everybody, and as you probably could tell from the song of the pileated woodpecker in the background, I am recording outside in the great outdoors for this, the introduction to the 200th episode of the Pedalshift Project. Thank you for joining. This is the Bicentennial edition, and whether this is your 200th episode listening or it's your first, thank you for being a part of this adventure. I want to give a special shout outs to Pedalshift Society for helping make all of this possible, and also, of course, to my friends out in Portland, Oregon and Salem, Oregon. Hey, it's not so bad. With the Sprocket podcast for continuing the inspiration to make this show happen as well. Look, I cannot think of a better way to celebrate 200 episodes than by kicking off an extra long first part to a new tour journal. I ended up calling this the social distancing on the C&O ride for all the obvious reasons. I mean, do I need to go into it? As I go to the microphone right now, we are entering a difficult and a dark time here in the United States, and I hope that these episodes give a little bit of a break from all of that, although obviously I mentioned the pandemic as part of the context of this ride. This, and I really want to emphasize this from the start, this was a no-contact, self-supported, self-contained ride on the C&O, and it didn't stick to plan, and it had a low point or two. You'll hear about that in the next episode, basically. And if I'm being honest, it probably won't end up being on my list of all-time tours, but I do have to wonder if this isn't going to be amongst the most memorable. It is Tuesday, March 24th, mid-afternoon right now. Just a quick update in the preparation for the ride. Nothing new on the gear. I did ride the bike, and it's riding quite good. Hey, memo, when you lubricate your chain, it actually rides better. I know. Breaking news. So that's great. The bike's riding well. I got new bar tape. I think I'd mentioned that before. So bike's doing great. I may need to do something about the brake pads, particularly on the front tire, front wheel. They're pretty worn down, but I'm not sure if I've got a new set of them, but I might need to do some adjustment. But other than that, everything is looking good for that. The big piece of news that I'm very excited about is that according to, and this was a hot tip from Preston Piper, the friend of the show who lives out in the Shepherdstown area. I was chatting with him, and I was asking him whether or not he knew if there was water in this one little park in the town of Brunswick. The town of Brunswick, as it turns out, is under an emergency order, and so I'd like to comply with that and not go into town, but I was hoping to get some water there. As it turns out, that is not my only source of water. The National Park Service has added the pump handles to a limited number of the campsites, but as it turns out, it's exactly the ones that I need. I'm looking at the list here. Oh, actually, they got it all the way up from about mile marker. Well, the Great Falls one is on, but those are the restrooms. That's actually, I knew that would be city water, that would be available. So it's on. That's good. So I can top off at about mile marker 14. I don't know how much water I'm going to drink between here and mile marker 14, but I'll make sure that I am topped off there. That'll be my last city water. Everything from Horsepen Branch campsite, which is mile marker 26, all the way, it looks, all the way past McCoy's Ferry, which is the last campsite before I would be exiting the trail. All of those handles are on there, which means that I do have access to safe drinking water and cooking water and cleaning water and all of that all the way through in both directions on the ride. Now on my return trip, I'll probably, well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I'll have fresh water all the way back home, basically. If I want to have non-well water, need non-well water, I will have that ability to get that at Great Falls. So I think that what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to rely on the water that I bring for drinking and cooking, because I just strongly prefer, obviously, city water. I do have a filtered water bottle that does remove some of the iodine taste and presumably some of the iodine as well. I'll be bringing that along. if I run out of quote unquote clean city water. I will use the well water, and that reminds me I've got to bring my bucket. I have a collapsible little bucket that works tremendously well for such things, that I can use for filling up so that I can use that for cleaning, brushing teeth, or any of those other things where, you know what, it's good, it's safe, but I'm not going to have to deal with the flavor, basically, of it, with the exception of maybe brushing my teeth. So that is tremendous news, and that really is the last piece that I was concerned about in terms of my ability to stay no contact through all of this. I have a little bit of an update. I had mentioned on yesterday's edition of this audio journal that West Virginia has an emergency order. I mentioned now that Brunswick itself has an emergency order. The state of Maryland, where I'm going to be spending most of my time, I did not mention the state of Maryland yesterday. I said DC doesn't really have one, but West Virginia does. The state of Maryland does not at this time have a lockdown or a stay-at-home order. I would suspect that that's going to change, perhaps in the middle of my ride. Now, the good news is that with my intention of staying on the trail, self-sufficient, no contact, etc., I don't think that I'm going to run into anybody that would be giving me any issues with that. Of course, in both directions, I am going to be, quote, going home anyways. I'm on a bicycle, and that seems to be the exception for all of this. I'm not intending to come in contact with anybody, so I feel good about my legal status, regardless if the status of things changes as I ride here. So anyways, that's the update right now. I think everything's good in terms of equipment and gear. Weather is looking variable again. It looks like now things seem to be improving for Friday, but you know what? I just need to expect Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is going to include some amount of rain no matter what. So I'm going to have to make sure that I have easy access to all rain gear while I ride. But I think as I do some more serious packing tomorrow of clothes, I'll start to address all of that. So that is the update for Tuesday before the ride. Allow me a non-coronavirus related cough. I think I had mentioned this on the show. I caught the flu, I think the regular old flu, a couple of weeks prior to, back in February, basically, early February. And I've had a lingering cough, which is very annoying during all of this nonsense. So, in any event, what I am doing right now is prepping for the bizarre amount of weather that I'm going to be having. And what, as I mentioned yesterday, the weather forecast is super variable. What it looks like I'm going to be dealing with is some very cold mornings, relatively speaking, in the low 40s Fahrenheit, and potentially getting up into the mid 70s and perhaps even higher on Friday, and then coming crashing back down again. Because, of course, on Saturday and then into Sunday. So today is a very raw, cold, wet day here in the district. It's in the low 40s Fahrenheit. Would not be happy biking in this, and I have a funny feeling I'm going to be biking in this perhaps Saturday and perhaps Sunday. Perhaps more so on Saturday, it looks like. But who knows? I mean, it just is all so variable. I think that what I really need to be concerned about is making sure that I've got more layers than I need, I think, just to be on the safe side. I mean, I tend to ride a little bit hot. I've talked about that a million times on the pod before. But, I'm going to be prepared with the gear that I had in Washington State for that one Brompton ride when I really, really needed it. Now, the interesting thing about that is at the end of those days, I had hotels to go to. This one, especially on Saturday, if that ends up being the bad day, I will have a tent to come to. But I'm in good shape for all of that. Even if this ends up having a type 2 day kind of fun on one of the days, I've got plenty of gear to warm up. I've got plenty of food. All of the things that you heard Meg Lonergan talk about in terms of making sure that you're eating right and you've got the nutrition and all those other types of things. This is not a tour for me to be going, oh, I don't eat sugar on on this tour. Yeah, I'll be eating sugar. I'll be eating things that will be able to generate some warmth on the days that I need it. It does look like that tomorrow is going to be excellent, though. And it does look like that Friday could be really nice. So, that's kind of where I'm at right now. Just pulling those things together and having it so that I don't have to stress about packing tomorrow. Interesting. Wow. The bag that contains my food and fuel is really on the heavy side. So I think I may end up doing something that I normally don't do, which is I tend to be very compartmentalized with my pannier. So like one will be clothes and gear, one will be food. I think that because my food bag is so much heavier than the other bag, I may be redistributing and just rethinking how I pack, because it's very clear that one bag is much heavier than the other and I would like to have better weight distribution. But I do think I've got the right clothing pulled out. I have a pair of flip-flops that I got that are brand new. I've got some wool socks. I'll actually bring 2 pairs of socks. The other pair will be my waterproof ones. In fact, I think they're already in the bag, if memory serves. You probably heard me put them in there. 1 pair of trail shoes. I've got multiple layers of merino wool. I've got 2 mid-weight merino wool sweaters, 1 base layer weight. I've also got a wicking t-shirt, not merino wool, but behaves like it. And then I've also got a base layer for bottoms if I have a particularly cold day riding and want to put those on. I think that might potentially be my Saturday option. I've got my favorite pair of bicycle touring pants. They are nothing special. I treated them back in the day to be waterproof. They have long lost that capability. I'm going to be bringing my rain pants. In fact, I should just pull those out right now because I see them in front of me. There we go. So I've got those, and of course I've got my rain jacket. I don't believe I'll be needing them, either of those, tomorrow. I think I'm also going to be bringing my puffy, will I bring the vest or will I bring the full jacket? I think I may bring the full jacket. That can keep me warm in a lot of different scenarios and probably more comfortably so than any other. And of course that packs down because it is a puffer. So I've just grabbed a couple of jackets. I'm walking in between where I keep some things and the bed, which I'm using as a staging area, which I use so often, especially when I'm solo. My girlfriend is currently away from the apartment at the moment. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good about things. I will have to make double sure that I've got proper underwear and whatnot. Because I'm going to be going to the cabin on Friday evening, I'll have the opportunity to do a wash if I need to, and to really thoroughly dry things out if I need them. That's I think, a really good thing. I should be prepared in the event if I choose not to go to the cabin. But I think at this point, there's so many good reasons to do that that's going to be my number one priority. I don't have much else to add to this other than I'm really looking forward to doing this. I'm looking forward to bringing you along for the ride, as I keep saying. I just am sort of antsy, and I don't know if it's because of the lockdowns and all of those types of things, or if it's just, hey, I've been mentally wanting to be on a bicycle by tomorrow, and I've had that in my head for a while. Maybe that's just it. So, starting tomorrow morning, you'll start hearing hearing reports on this feed from the trail. And I am excited, as I said, to bring you along for the ride. Thanks for checking in, and we'll be rolling tomorrow. Breaking news. It is 7:00 p.m. on the night before that I'm leaving, and I am informed, and I have confirmed, that the National Park Service has reversed course and has now officially closed, not the campsites, not the trail. This is still all happening. But I'm so glad I found this out before I left. The restrooms and the water pumps are all now closed throughout the park. So that's very important for me to know ahead of time. Number one, if I intend to do this as a no-contact thing, I am now bringing my Sawyer Mini water filtration system, which will give me all the water I need. It just so happens I'm going to be right next to a pretty major river. I will not collect any water until I'm past the water treatment plant that is outside of the DC area, because there's all sorts of junk that goes in that. So that's an option. And I am also going to have to bring something to dig a cat hole with, because we're in full backcountry mode. I'm assuming that they are locking or have locked or intend to lock the porta potties in all of the campgrounds. So that is something. And I'm going to have to bring some toilet paper as well. Some of that prized toilet paper. So there's your tour breaking news. Good morning. 9:40 a.m. here at the Chesapeake and Ohio National Historic Park Towpath. It is quiet. It is very quiet. There is some traffic over the, is this the Key Bridge? I guess that's the Key Bridge. But it is very quiet. Only a couple of bikes so far that have passed me by while I've gotten set up. Getting a little bit later start this morning because, well, I hope you enjoyed the pod this fine day in episode 199. I realized as I got out of the shower that I actually didn't really get it set up. I've been promoting it and doing all these things, and yeah, well, anyways, it's done. So as a result, I'm a little bit late getting up. Cool, but not cold. Dry. It should be a nice day. Birds are singing. It's pretty lovely out. Bike's all loaded up and ready to go. I got 4 liters of water plus water bottles, so I think I'm in great shape. You can hear the airlines are still operating, at least on a reduced schedule overhead. All right, it is time to get rolling on the C&O. About mile marker 5 or so, we're really quite early in the ride here. I am noticing a couple things. One, I would say trail use is about what I expected at this point. A bunch of runners and a handful of bikes. Nothing really crazy. Certainly a lot less than the weekend. I think it's interesting. I'm seeing a lot of younger people. Of course, they're out of school, so that kind of makes some sense for them to get outside. The sun is poking out, so I do think that people are going to venture out into the outdoors and remain properly socially distanced and utilize this wonderful resource, which is still open. There are amenities that are suspended, including bathrooms and water, which is why I brought, it's probably got about at least 5 liters of water on me. So I believe that's more than a gallon. You metric types are going to have to school me on that. I do have to say, the one thing that I've noticed more on this ride than anything else, and granted, it's only been a few miles, is the quizzical looks that I'm getting, more so than normal riding a fully loaded bike. But I think under these conditions, I think there's a fair number of people that I've encountered that I've talked about this, my coworkers in particular, who are quite quiet when I let them know what I was doing. And of course, I mentioned, it was solo, unsupported, no contact. But it's just very interesting, the juxtaposition between what people think is okay to do and, well, I guess what I'm doing. So that's pretty normal, isn't it? Trail conditions. They are not as good as I would have liked. The trail is wetted down, and there is a fair amount of standing water here and there. Today, I don't think that's going to be a big deal. Now that the sun is peeking out, I think it's going to just dry that all right up. But B, what this is telling me is something that's not so hot, and that is what looms on Saturday. Saturday is going to be wet and very cold. I don't think we're going to climb out of the 40s for most of the day. So I do have all the gear for it. I'm still planning on riding, but I've got in the back of my head that there is a hotel option if that's necessary. Now, I would only tug on that emergency cable if it is indeed an emergency, because I do not intend it. But I would like to stay fully off-grid, offline, no contact. Now, of course, when I say no contact, obviously I'm coming within X number of feet of folks as I ride. But I'm not stopping and I'm not engaging other than to say hello. Just past Blockhouse 6, I think that was. You might have heard the weir as we're going by. What a beautiful day. The ducks are out. Just past a couple of mallards swimming in the canal. There's a little bit of floating algae. Some more runners up here. But it's a really beautiful day. I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to do this. A lot of folks with dogs off leash, which I don't care about. But I want to be careful of them and their pups. Oh, there we go. Good morning. Good morning. Sweet little girl. She was older, like my Belle Star. The pups, when I said goodbye today, they're always a little weird when I leave, because I don't know if they notice it, but they can tell something's up when I'm packing lots of things up in my big orange bags. So I think it's kind of funny to see their reactions. I think dogs have been a real lifesaver for a lot of folks throughout all of this. I cannot tell you how many ducks there are. I'm going to definitely get some pictures up of the wildlife as much as I can, because I know so many folks are not able to get out in nature. So I thought I would share my trip on that level as much as possible. Definitely check it out on Instagram. Coming up on your left here. And I am now going by one of the first of the water treatment areas here on the Potomac. I had mentioned that water treatment area, or the water treatment plants, I would not want to collect water downstream. Now, downstream is kind of a funny thing. The Potomac is tidal in this area, and probably for quite a few miles up ahead. So upstream and downstream is largely not really a true thing. Generally speaking, I am going against the flow of the Potomac right now. But it being tidal, there are times when it comes to a stop, and in fact even reverses. Anyways, because people are putting things into the water that I would not want to drink, even with my very good, very effective Sawyer Mini, I am not planning on collecting any water until I need it. And that's probably not going to happen until maybe even as far as camp tonight near Brunswick and Harper's Ferry. I always like the old timers who are on the trail. She was pulling up invasive weeds. That's pretty awesome. Well, in any event, I am now at mile marker 6, so thank you for riding this mile with me. I will check in later on. About mile marker 11 or so, near the Carter Rock parking area. And as I suspected, the trail gets a little bit more populated near the parking areas. This is the last one, if memory serves, until the larger one near the town of Potomac, Maryland, which is the Great Falls Overlook. That's probably the biggest one for a long ways. Everything else is going to be very small, little car parks. So you can tell I've been watching British shows, right? Near the some minor access points. So I expect a little boomlet of activity here, which I think I just went through, and then potentially a bigger boomlet of activity near Potomac / Great Falls. In terms of people, it's mostly folks just walking. I've not seen any loaded bike tourists. I have seen very few bikes, period. Especially since I've gotten out of the DC area. This is very much getting into the outer suburbs. I shouldn't say the outer suburbs, the suburbs of Washington, D.C. Interestingly, I see a vehicle on the trail, which is not supposed to be here. Well, why don't you tag along with me until we do this? Coming up on your right here. Pardon me. Thank you. Pay fucking attention. Nothing worse than oblivious people walking two abreast who don't realize that stuff's going on. Okay, this looks like official people. This is the scout campsite here that I'm coming up on. And these are Park Service folks. Actually, this is the Billy Goat Trail. Yeah, these are Park Service folks. How you doing? Hi there. Hello. It's really unusual to see uniformed Park Service folks on the trail. They are normally at the visitor centers at best. I think that's the first time I've ever seen uniformed Park Service folks. Now, they were trail maintenance, doing trail maintenance, but there was definitely full-on ranger amongst them. Interestingly, here at this point in the trail, they're still doing some surveying, so work continues. As we go along here. This is an area of the trail that is raised above the river, and it's definitely a man-made portion that I think has had some erosion issues over time. That if this ever went out, it'd be a real bummer. I think there's a way around, but it would be no bueno if this went out. In fact, I think that this was recently fixed. I think this is the part that was recently fixed maybe a couple of years ago. Or maybe, nope, it's still further on down. So maybe they're doing this in phases. They're reinforcing it. Hopefully they can do that without any trail closures. Going through a bit of mud right now, which is not surprising for this very short section. As I mentioned, it's kind of a man-made area that they chose not to pave. That does not have very good drainage. So as a result, I hope that does not end up being what Saturday and Sunday have in store for me. I think I'd mentioned this. Saturday's looking like a slog of a day, and I expect trail conditions to deteriorate. And Sunday's supposed to be nice, but I think not nice enough to rebound the trail up. So I may have a harder riding on the way home than on the way out. All right, that's that. Just north or west or whatever it is of Potomac and Great Falls. I'm at the last of the water treatment areas. It's this big gargantuan shed building thing. I thought I'd take a quick break and maybe grab a little bit of water. One thing that I notice when I do a lot of biking, maybe you do too, is that I will get a dry cough because I'm not hydrating. What I've learned subsequently is that you're breathing in and out. If you are too dry, you're actually going to create almost like friction burn from the air coming back and forth. And that's why you're going to get that dry cough. So if I've got that on top of my pre-existing dregs of a cough, I just would kind of prefer to make sure that I don't have that. So I'm hydrating. I'm also getting close to lunchtime. It's I don't know if I mentioned this. It's 11:30, and I think I'm going to have at least half a sandwich. There is a campground coming up here, and it's the first one. And the next one isn't for at least another 10 miles or so. So I think it's a good time to take a break. I am behind schedule a little bit for my own personal comfort level, just because I started later. But I think everything's all right. It is gorgeous out. The trees are starting to flower. The cardinals are out. If you checked out on Instagram, I put up a video of a beaver of all things. That was the first thing I was able to take a picture of. Pretty great. Lots of people on the trail. Very few bikers. A few people are interested in my journey, so I've been having 6 foot away conversations about all that. The bike's behaving well. Getting a little muddier than I expected for today, but the sun's coming out, so I think it'll be all right. All right, next stop, lunch. About 20 minutes of one at mile marker 22. This is another one of the smaller parking areas, much less crowded than some of the others I've seen. The one over by Swings Lock was absolutely packed to the gills. There are so many people out here on this trail. I have to be honest, I'm kind of, I really was looking forward to some solitude, and I'm not getting it. I'm about to enter a portion of the trail that can be, frankly, a little bit poor in terms of trail conditions, but as I'm looking at it right now, I think it should be okay. I think that most of the rain from the last couple of days is drying out. So I think that this stretch won't be so bad. That'll get me to White's Ferry, which is around mile marker 35 or so. I should be there hour and a half, give or take. I am going pretty slow, though. This is a wider area of the river that I'm looking at right now, and I've been trying to snap some pictures. I'll do it again here. It's just a beautiful day. The sun's finally out a little bit more, and I'm kind of struggling with, okay, do I want to wear my jacket or not, or what I want to be wearing from a warmth management perspective. It's still got a little bit of a chill in the air. It's not too bad. I'm not riding with great energy today. Maybe it's the first day on the trail. I think that I'm finding that my desire to do all of the 63 miles on the trail to Harper's Ferry, or to the campsite that I was intending on going to, I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. I'm just going to play today by ear. I've got 2 good days of weather. Should I decide to go to the cabin, then great, I've got that. The huge advantage of that is that as the weather turns on Saturday, I'll have fully dry gear. I'll have a good night's sleep outside of a tent, and that'd be great. But you know what? If I end up not just wanting to make all these miles, maybe what I'll do is readjust my mileage expectations and just not go all the way up there. It's funny how here I am only 22 miles into the day, and I'm already feeling that way. I don't know why that's the case, but that's just sort of sharing my thoughts about things at this moment. I often will feel that way, and we'll end up just banging out the miles, and everything's great. So who knows? Ate half of my lunch back there, and I'll eat the other half maybe past White's Ferry. There's a good campsite where I can kind of check that all out. I think there's good riding ahead. I'm hoping for that. I think I'd like a little more solitude than what I've been getting. It's interesting. It's just sort of like I will pass a person, and it'll be quiet for a minute, and then I'll see the next people, and it's just sort of like, wow, my that was my expectations. I'd be busy for day use, but I was really kind of hoping for more solitude. Still keeping the social distancing, of course. And I've been noticing people have been hitting that as well. Oh, one other thing. The bathrooms were zip-tied shut. Everyone that I've passed since Swains Lock. So I think that's what it would be expected going forward. So I do have all of my gear to handle such things, shall we say, which is good. And of course, I've also got my water bladder, and I'm set for water, so I don't have to worry about that. All right, more to come. From Chisel Branch Hiker-Biker Campsite, mile marker 30.5. It is about 2 p.m. on the first day of this adventure. Trail conditions deteriorated, then undeteriorated. In fact, I went through a, oh my God, I just want to turn around moment, or basically a situation where I was just like, this isn't fun. And then I remind myself that this is the section of the trail that I tend to not like very much at all, and it's just fine. Being here at Chisel Branch is just really nice. It's got a beautiful river access. I'm even half tempted to just call the day here, honestly, just because it's such a beautiful spot. The wind's blowing, but it's nice weather out. There's a lot to be said about camping here. You may recall way back in the day, pre-podcast days, I think. Definitely pre-podcast days. This was the portion. This was the campsite that I got flooded out in, and it was a thing. There's a video. You've probably seen it. If not, go look for it. It's Potomac River flood. Just throw that into the YouTube. You'll find me. And the fish that was in the trail that I'm looking back on right now. So I'm going to have the second half of my lunch. I'm feeling this ride a little bit more than I thought I would. I think I maybe ate myself out of shape a little bit over the last couple of weeks, which is fine. Trail conditions seem to be improving a little bit. It'll probably be, there's another gnarly section between here and White's Ferry, but I am contemplating doing the Washington Old Dominion Trail on the way back, just because I think if the weather does turn and we get some more rain, this part of the trail it just doesn't do too well. So I'm toying with that, but I think more to the point, I'm really toying with just riding and doing what I feel like. Like, I don't think I'm going to pitch tent here and end day one this early. It is only 2:00, but I do think that I'm in the headspace right now that it's just like, I just want to ride and I want to camp. And then tomorrow I think I want to ride and I want to camp. And then the next day, if the weather's really bad, maybe I pull a 0 day. I don't know. I think that the notion of getting to the cabin, it's not as important to me as maybe I once thought it was. It is a kind of, it was sort of the central tenet of the tour to begin with, but hey, you know what, I've changed tours like that as I've been going along. Really beautiful out. It's so nice to be able to deconnect from everything, even though it's kind of there's constant reminders all around. The handles aren't on the pumps, the restrooms are all either strapped shut or zip tied shut. It's very clear that the Park Service is doing its best to reduce contact and reduce potential transmissions, which is great. But there's a lot of people out here. They're enjoying the outdoors, and I think that's great. And it's sort of what I'm planning on doing too. So yeah, I think from this point on, I think that the ride is just going to be what it is. And I wish I brought my hammock because it's gorgeous out right now, and I would love a hammock, but I did not bring it. As heavy as I'm riding, I did not bring my hammock. I sat there looking at it going, nah, too cold, dummy. In any event, I'm going to enjoy the rest of my lunch and then drink some water and then look at the river and then go ride some more. From about mile marker 35, I am at White's Ferry, Maryland. The cable ferry is running. The White's Ferry store is, by some miracle, actually operating. It never is. They're doing carry-out service only. I'm not going to be participating in it. They did have their vending machines open, though, and that is nice to see. So that's an option, I think. A little bit of hand sanitizer and whatnot. I think I'm in good shape to utilize that. Tons of people on the trail today. I am looking forward to getting some more solitude, which I should be getting soon. One thing that I think I've grown accustomed to is having the C&O largely to myself. When I do my weekday tours especially, my goodness, it's this pandemic's taken away my solitude. What can I say? So yeah, here I am, mile marker 35. This is the resurfaced section of the trail. I mean, it's so much faster. I was really going quite slow. And I'm realizing as I sit here, the last few weeks I think, there's been just a lot of energy and stuff like that going into things. I was telling somebody recently I've been working harder while working from home than ever. So, I think I'm going to take this a little bit easy today, as I mentioned before, and end up camping somewhere. Maybe in the next couple of campsites, I think. I would just want to kick back. I didn't bring my hammock, but I think I want to kick back, pitch the tent, maybe even scout for some firewood and have a campfire tonight or this afternoon and just kind of enjoy the nice weather. I feel like I've gotten a nice ride. It's been great. I've got great surface all the way to Harper's Ferry from here. So yeah, maybe I get to Harper's Ferry tomorrow and conceivably do it. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe tomorrow is going to be an interesting day to make a decision on all the things. But I do think I'm just gonna stop when I want to stop and go when I want to go, and really just enjoy the day. Today's been today started cold but got beautiful. I think tomorrow is going to be even nicer, and I expect that there's probably going to be even more folks out. But if I'm further down the trail, I think it's more likely that would be a less utilized portion of the trail, but I keep thinking that, and it just doesn't seem to be happening. So I think I should be expecting to have a lot of people around. And when I say a lot of people, I got a little bit of criticism on Facebook from somebody for doing this trip, and I just think that's frankly not understanding what the kind of trip I'm doing, nor it's also ignoring a lot of good advice that's coming from medical professionals and others as well, that being outside is perfectly fine. If you're asymptomatic, you don't have the virus. I'm not going to be spreading it to anybody. I'm not going to be getting it from anybody. But in any event, there's just not a lot of people out here in terms of compared to walking around DC or whatnot. But I think that this is the type of activity that's perfectly fine, perfectly good. Bike's holding up pretty well. It's a little bit on the muddy side, but nothing too bad. Glancing at the chain here, it probably could use a little bit of a cleaning. You know me on tour, I rarely do that, but I think I should. I got Turtle Run. I got a few others up here that are interesting. Then I start getting into a bunch of campsites that are by rail tracks, and that's the thing about this stretch that's kind of not so great. And I realized I left my earplugs at home, so that's another reason why I may call it early. If I'm not going to go all the way to Harper's Ferry, which is away from the tracks, I think I may just go to one of these ones where before they're right next to the tracks, get a good night's sleep, and then just kind of keep riding tomorrow, figure out what I want to do. Plane overhead. Let's see, what airport do I think they're going to? I would think that they are heading towards Baltimore, based on that trajectory. All right, well, beautiful day. I got some pictures of flowers. I got pictures of ducks. It's just been a lovely day, and it's nice. I feel tired, but in that good kind of exercise tired. And I think that tonight will be really a good night's sleep and a well-deserved night's sleep. All right, more to come after I get to camp. From a very content Marble Quarry hiker-biker campsite. Let's see, that would be mile marker 38.2. Yes, I went about 40 miles today. Oh well, it is, I'm not going to call it the end of day one. I'll probably be checking in some more. But I do think that it is the end of my riding for today, largely because I've pitched a tent. I'm all set with all of that, and I'm very happy about that. I was going by Marble Quarry here, and I believe I've camped here before. I should check and see what I considered this in. You know how we do rankings on the Pedalshift guide to the C&O, pedalshift.net/Cando, if you're interested in playing the home game. And it just looks so nice. The sun was hitting it. There's some wood here at the fire ring. There was plenty of other kindling around, so I gathered some of that, and I was just like, you know what, this feels like home for tonight. And most importantly, I'm a solid couple of miles from any road access, so this is as quiet as it has been the entire day on the trail, which is really, really nice. And frankly, I'm a little tired. I'm ready to make some dinner, maybe 2 dinners, who knows. And read a little bit more and really just kind of enjoy the solitude. I think that ultimately, as much as I wanted to do a bike tour, I think I wanted some solitude just as much as anything else. So many of us are inside, and we're with loved ones, hopefully, friends, loved ones, whatever, family. And, after a little while, you kind of need that little bit of space. And this is nice. This is nice. And I know that Kimberly is probably just as happy having her solitude as well, probably more so than me, because she is much more of the introvert compared to me. In any event, the campsite is lovely. I'm going to take a few more pictures now that I've got it all set up and I've gotten some things put away. One of the elements about how I rode was things were sort of spread out between the panniers, so it's like having to just kind of pull all the things together and get a little bit organized was took some doing, but I'm largely all set here. It's still a little bit of a mess. I've got bungees everywhere, and I usually like to keep those a little more organized. But I've got my headlamp out. I've got my stuff to wash with out. My lighter. I brought this enormous, way too big lighter so that I can light my stove, the Green Dragon. It's all set up, and I tested that, so that's all set. So I'm super content and ready to roll tomorrow, I think. But yeah, and that's going to be the open question. So obviously I've only gone 40 miles on the trail. Ordinarily, I would be another 22 miles down the trail if I was going to continue and go to the cabin. So I think that this says, all right, cabin's not going to happen unless tomorrow I'm feeling super strong. And I mean super strong, because that would be, let's think here, well, it would be about a 70-mile day when all is said and done. Tomorrow would have been the short day. So maybe I just flip them around. Maybe I do end up at the cabin tomorrow. A lot just depends on what time I get up, what time I want to roll, how I'm feeling. The trail conditions from here basically all the way to Harper's Ferry are excellent. It's the brand new surface. I think I've mentioned this in past podcasts before, but the C&O is slowly going to be resurfacing sections of the trail that can handle it. It's a surface that, now that it's really kind of settled in, I said this last time, I think it's at least as good, if not a little bit better, than the Gap surface. And I just wonder if maybe, it is sort of like the 2.0 or 3.0 version of this surfacing technology and method. It is flat, it is great, it rolls awesome, and it drains like nobody's business, because as I showed pictures on Instagram, other parts of the trail that are still sort of in that historic state, they get mudded up and rutted pretty quickly. The stretch between mile marker 35 and mile marker 30, so that's between Edwards Ferry and Whites Ferry, that used to be a hot mess of a 5-mile stretch. So if this new surface can stand up to it, I'm really hoping that they continue that resurfacing, hopefully this year, maybe. We'll see. I don't know if it's capable of it, but from, about mile marker 22 is 22 to 30, maybe 23 to 30 is one of my least favorite stretches of trail, because it just gets really muddy and rutted. It might not have the conditions that support this type of surface, but if they did, that would be fantastic. Trying to think if there's anything else. Bike performed really great. Like I said, I'm feeling a little on the tired side, so I'm glad I called it at this point. And tomorrow we'll just kind of play by ear with all of that. Wildlife sightings. Let's see. I saw some ducks. I've seen some egrets. I've seen some blue herons. I've been able to get pictures of some of these things, and I'll hopefully get those up on social as well. One of the delightful parts of this ride right now is the trees are, some trees are flowering, some trees are budding, but we are getting some wildflowers. There's some, I don't know if they're bluebells, but they look like bluebells. Forgive me, I've forgotten most of my college plant identification, and I obviously didn't go to college around here, so I wouldn't have known the plants around here. But actually, I should probably start to get to know some of the plants since I bike this trail a lot. Maybe that's a this year thing. Maybe that's what I should do with some extra time this year. But in any event, just very beautiful. I think that the trail is just about ready to pop in terms of spring beauty, and I'm really grateful that I'm able to be riding it. I think that this is good weather today, good weather tomorrow. And when I'm done talking to you, I'm going to be checking out to see what the future holds for the weekend, because I think that's definitely going to make the decision about where I decide to go. Perhaps shorter, perhaps longer. We'll have to kind of see how that all goes. I think that we're now within a good range that, as I jokingly refer to weather forecasts as for entertainment purposes only, if they're outside of 3 days, I think we're within close enough time that I can rely on their Saturday forecast. So we'll see how that goes. All right, more to come. I will probably, maybe I'll come up with a good story or something to tell by the campfire that I'm hopefully able to start. We will see. I have good kindling. I'm not sure if I'll be able to start it, but I'm going to give it the good old college try, as people way older than me would say. Okay, talk to you later. Good evening. It is close to 7 o'clock. We got about a half hour or so of sunlight to go. I think I'm guessing that I have seen the last group to go by. I've seen, I'd say, half dozen folks on bikes go by this campsite since I've been here for the last couple of hours. And basically just, kind of waved hello to folks. Didn't have any real interactions. It's interesting. I keep thinking, it's like I've made sure, okay, well, this is no contact, no whatever. But in a way, it is not very different from most of my solo rides on the C&O. I have a campfire going, which is I cannot tell you how unusual it is for me to do a campfire. And I think the part of the reason is that, generally speaking, I get into camp not long before sundown. I eat, I get the tent, get everything pulled together. I just don't ever, I'm usually tired. I just don't ever really feel the need or the desire to do it because it's a thing. It's more than just kind of, throw a few things together and it's done. And, there's an art to it. It's more art than science, although I'm sure people would disagree with that. I think it's more art. But I was able to get this going. The wood is pretty wet, but luckily there was enough dry, small sticks just lying about that I've been able to get a pretty good set of coals going that's burning these larger pieces of wood that are pretty green, let's be honest. But it's nice, it's a nice change of pace to how I usually do the C&O, because normally, like I said, I don't do a fire. I honestly, if I've done more than 2, I'd put the over-under at 2 is the number of campfires I've done on the C&O when I'm solo riding. Like, I've participated in campfires. Famously, of course, I did a podcast in one way, way, way back when. In fact, we even have done it as a best of. So, don't do the campfire very often, but it is nice. I do love me a campfire. We also have fireplaces in both of our places, Kimberly and I. So we are big fans of the natural wood campfires. Fireplaces. So I made dinner. Dinner was a Knorr sidekick. It was a cheddar broccoli rice. And let's see, I mixed in a thing of green beans. Also some, what is that? It was delicious. It was pesto. Some pesto. Ate the heck out of that. Ate that whole package. Had a little bit of cheese, had a whole can of vegetarian baked beans, Heinz brand baked beans. And I'm super full now. So I think I should be good for the night. Just kind of like getting a general overview of my food stock. I'm good for the number of days that I'm going to be out here. But I do think I need to be, I don't want to go hog wild eating. I'm noticing that I put a pretty good dent in my what do we call it, the trail mix. I also, no disrespect to the corn tortilla. The corn tortilla is fantastic if you're going to do certain things with it. But camping, corn tortilla is not my fan. It's not my favorite. I tend to be a flour tortilla kind of guy. So that kind of messes with a few of my plans for tomorrow in terms of what I'm going to be eating. I may just kind of go with cheese and trail mix and stuff like that. Normally what I would do is I throw some peanut butter in there and the flour tortilla, that works great for me. For whatever reason, the corn tortilla just doesn't. So made that critical mistake when I bought these. I've got a ton of Pop-Tarts, which will essentially be breakfast. I also have, what do I have here? Oh, I've got potato flakes. I've got Bob's Red Mill potato flakes, so I can make a cheesy mashed potato. So I've got options. I got plenty of food. I'm not concerned at all. It's not going to be gourmet cooking by any stretch of the imagination, but no problem. I'm, of course, also reminded how much I hate cleaning this pot when I cook in it. But it was definitely the right call to not do freezer bag cooking. As much as I'm a proponent of it, I think for this trip, I'm happy now to have it. Took a peek at the weather, and it looks, I think we're pretty locked in. I think tomorrow is going to be a warmer version of today, which is to say that it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful day. It's going to be nice, good cycling weather. And then the next question ends up being what to do next. So I think that I'm going to keep the possibility open of getting to the cabin tomorrow. By my calculations, let's see here. I am about, I'm 77 miles from the cabin. That would be a really long day for me. But if I bomb out and get to Harper's Ferry stupid early tomorrow, which is totally within the realm of possibility. If I get across that outage and move through there, then I think that there's a decent possibility that I might consider pushing through, going for it. There is a road route that might be a possibility where I'd leave from Williamsport that might be a little bit easier. The mileage is about the same. So that's that might be something that I would consider rather than taking the shall we say quasi-legal option across the rail bridge. So if I get up early tomorrow, if I'm feeling good, if I've got great energy and I'm just like, yeah, let's do this, I think that I'm still going to keep that in the realm of the possible. Otherwise, what I might consider doing is, it's not very far to Harper's Ferry. And, by the way, Saturday looks like it's going to be bad for the first part of the day. So what I'm thinking is that there's a possibility of maybe I just do a later start, like a real late start. It looks like it would be like around noon or so to not have to deal with the rain. So regardless of where I lay my head, I may do some riding on Saturday, just pushed later. So that means that I may push out further on the trail. It gives me the window of opportunity to say, you know what, go past Harper's Ferry, keep going, see where you're at, and if it doesn't feel good, you know what, shut it down, camp someplace awesome, and sleep way in on Saturday, and then pack up the wet tent, and then motor on, a fair amount back, just so that it's not a long ride on Sunday to get back to DC. I think ideally what I'd like to do is to not have a super long ride back. But you know what? If I end up at the cabin tomorrow night, then that means that the mileage is all working out, and I'll go back to averaging 60 miles a day if I can do an above average mileage tomorrow. So that's sort of where my headspace is. It's funny how after being off of the bike for a little while, getting some food in me, start a fire, getting the camp set up, it's sort of like, no, I feel great. Sure, I can do 77 miles tomorrow, no problem. So we'll kind of cross that bridge quite literally when we get to it. I promised a story. I don't got one in my head, to be perfectly honest. I do have the one story that I only tell in person. I did think for a moment that I would share the story of a night in Cumberland that went really, really, really sideways. And I don't tell it because I only tell it in person. So you have to meet me in person to know this. Kenny Mikey, friend of the show, I know you've heard this in Florida. Very few people have heard this story, but yes, no, not going to be telling it. Sorry, folks. You're going to have to come to a meetup. You're going to have to, and make sure you ask me for it. The Cumberland story that I don't tell on the internet. There's a good reason. You'll understand why. I didn't do anything wrong. Actually, far from it. I did not do anything wrong. I did nothing illegal. There is no problem on that end. It's a different reason why I don't want to tell it on the internet. Anyways, long story. That you can hear in person only. All right, well, after that little tidbit, I think I'm going to probably bid you a good night from here at the campground and my fire. I don't know if you can hear the crackle of it or the wildlife in the background, but it's a really nice night. I have to say, one of the nice things about these campgrounds is these incredibly ancient trees that you camp under. I don't even know what kind of tree this is. It's probably some kind of a maple. It's so early in the season that the leaves that are coming off of it, well, you know what? That is not a maple because it does not have the helicopters. I don't know what it is, but it is enormous and it is old and it has stood here. Probably isn't as old as the Civil War, but I'll tell you what, it is an old tree. It has been here for a very long time, and it just towers over the trail and actually hangs a little bit over the canal. It is kind of nice to have these old timers here and to be sleeping amongst them on a nice cool night here in the spring of 2020. Well, in any event, I hope you all have a great night. I hope you're staying safe. Wash your hands. I did. I washed my hands. Statistics. Day 1, miles ridden 42, fires lit 1, muddy ruts dude 50, beavers 1, chains dirtied 1, and flats 0. And as always, we like to close out the show with a special shout out to the Pedalshift Society. Because of support from listeners like you, Pedalshift is a weekly bicycle touring podcast with a global community, expanding into live shows and covering new tours like the Kessel Run and the Missing Link bike tours. If you like what you hear, you can support the show for $5, $2, or even $1 a month. And there's one-shot and annual options. If you're not into the small monthly thing, check it all out at pedalshift.net/society. On to the society. Kimberly Wilson, Caleb Jenkinson, Cameron Lean, Andrew McGregor, Michael Hart, Keith Nagel, Brock Didis, Thomas Skadow, Marco Lowe, Terrence Manson, Harry Telgadis, Chris Barron, Mark Van Ram, Brad Hipwell, Stuart Buchan, Mr. T, Nathan Poulton, Stephen Dickerson, Vince LaGreco, Cody Florchinger, Tom Beninati, Greg Braithwaite, Sandy Pizzio, Jeff Muster, Seth Pollock, Joseph Quinn, Drew Porter, Byron Patterson, Joachim Robert, Ray Jackson, Jeff Fry, Kenny Mikey, Lisa Hart, John Denkler, Steve Henkel, Miguel Quinones, Alejandro Aviles Reyes, Keith Spangler, Greg Towner, Dan Gebhardt, Jody Zeranin, Lucas Barwick, Michael Baker, Brian Bechtal, Reinhard Biggle, Greg Middlemas, Connie Moore, William Goffman, Brian Benton, Joan Churchill, Mike Bender, Rick Weinberg, Billy Crafton, Gary Matushak, Greg Latois Lopez, James Sloan, Jonathan Dillard, John Funk, Tom Bilch, Ronald Caroli, Dave Roll, Brian Hafner, Misha LeBlanc, Ari Messinger, David Grotke, Todd Grossbeck, Wally Estrella, Sue Reinert, John Lecco, Stephen Granada, Philip Mueller, Kevin Olhausen, Robert Lackey, Dominic Carroll, Jackie McCulloch, John Hickman, and new to the Society, Jack Smith. And thanks also to all past and anonymous donors for helping to make this show happen. Thank you for joining. You can find Pedalshift at pedalshift.net for more great bicycle touring content. You can hear the Pedalshift Project through Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. Opening music courtesy of Jason Kent off his self-titled album. The track is called America. Check out his band Sunfield's latest release, Mono Mono, wherever cool music is available.